So welcome everyone. This is another video to go over some of the material that we've been covering in class. I'm pretty sure that this worksheet is worksheet 4.5b, which we went over a little bit today. And what it deals with is finding the x and y intercepts. I give you the equation and then you find the x-intercept, y-intercept. You write them in this table. From those ordered pair, you find the slope, and then once you find the slope, you take those points and then you graph the line. So one thing that I've talked about is that we know if I have an x-intercept could be like 2 and 0. And anytime I have an x-intercept, anyway, a point that lies on the y-axis, one thing that we know, the x-intercept, the 0 will always belong to the y part of the ordered pair, and then the x part of the ordered pair will be wherever the line crosses the x-axis. So again, if I want to find the x-intercept, I'm always going to let y be 0. So let me go ahead and erase what I've got there, and we'll go ahead and find it for part A and then go ahead and graph it. So if y is going to be 0, there's my y, so this equation becomes 6 times 0 plus 16x minus 40, or equals a negative 48. So we know that anything times 0 is 0, so that's really going to cancel out to 0. So now this equation becomes 16x equals a negative 48. And then we just simply do our division here. We want this to be 1x. Well, to get 16 over 16 is 1, so that's really division there. So we divide 16 to each side, so x equals a negative 3 when y is 0. So there's my x-intercept. Now I want to find my y-intercept. So let's come over here to the other side, and we know that when x is 0, that leaves an equation with just the y, so I can find the y-intercept. So we'll have a negative 6y plus 16 times 0 equals a negative 48. We know that cancels the 0. 0 doesn't have any value, so now this equation becomes a negative 6y equals a negative 48. Again, we want to turn this to 1y. 1 can be written as a negative 6 over a negative 6, correct? So to do that, I'm actually doing division by a negative 6, so I'm going to divide by a negative 6 to each side. So now y, when x is 0, y becomes a negative 48 divided by a negative 6 is 8. So those are my ordered pairs. For the x-intercept, I have a negative 3 and 0. For the y-intercept, I have 0 and 8. So this is where this crosses the x-axis, this is where it crosses the y-axis, and then I'll have some type of a slope for a line. Now one thing that we learned on the last section is the slope is the same as the change in the y's. That is a delta symbol. Delta in the Greek alphabet means change. So the change in the y's is from 0 to 8. Well, that's going up on the number line. So if I look at the y's, if I'm at 0 and I go up 8, that's 8 in the positive direction, so that slope will be 8. And then if I look here, I'm going from 0 to a negative 3. So from 0 on the x to a negative 3 on the x, that's in the negative direction, right? Or no, that's in the positive, sorry. So at negative 3 to 0, that's the way I want to go. So negative 3 to 0, that's a positive 3 there. Negative 3 to 0, that's a positive 3. So that means my slope is 8 over 3. Now if you look over here at our ordered pair, this slope that I have here, this is a good way to check it should match the slope I have here. So we always start counting at the y-intercepts. So here I'm counting down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares. So that's a negative 8 squares. And then to the right, or to the left, excuse me, to the left, we know that's in the negative direction. So that's a negative 1, 2, 3. Well, let's take a look at our numbers. Isn't a negative 8 over a negative 3 the same as 8 over 3? So that means the slope that I have here from these ordered pair match the line that I'm trying to graph. Because sometimes what we can do is find our points correctly, and where we fail to make things meet is when we do the slope or when we graph the line. So when we have our ordered pairs, our x and y intercepts, and we have correctly found the slope, and we've correctly graphed it, plotted the points, then everything should match. So that matches the line there. This is the slope from here. This is the slope from this line. And these are the two ordered pair that I plotted here and here. So everything matches, so that means I have done my problem correctly. Now we're going to go ahead and line up our straight edge and graph and label the line. So this line right here is line A. And so we're done with this first problem here. Okay. So some things to remember is that if I'm finding the x-intercept, let y equal 0. If I'm finding the y-intercept, let x equal 0. And then it gives us two different equations that we can solve for the x and we can solve for the y-intercept. Once we have our ordered pair, we can use this table of values here to find the slope. And once we find the slope, we plot our 2 points, and then we count the slope to make sure that we've done our problem right. And if everything checks out, where I've got this identical slopes from the line, and it matches here, then I can go ahead and graph my line. And I know that problem's done right. Okay, we're going to go on to problem number 2 and do one of the sections from problem number 2. So let me close this and let me clear out my screen. It says here, use the slope formula to find the slope between the following ordered pairs. Identify if an ordered pair is an x or y intercept. Plot the points to graph the equation. Be sure to draw your lines completely through the coordinate plane. Okay, so this is ordered pair 1. We're going to call that number 1, and this is ordered pair number 2. So we know ordered pairs are x's and y's. We know they're x's and y's. Well, this is the x that belongs to the first ordered pair. This is the y that belongs with the first ordered pair. This is the x that belongs to the second ordered pair. This is the y that belongs to the second ordered pair. So with that in mind, that lets us understand how we need to use this equation. y2 corresponds to the number 0, so I'll write that first. y1 corresponds to 2. And that's why I just write my numbers that I have for y2 and y1, and then what does this tell me to do? I'm supposed to subtract them. So 0 minus 2 is a negative 2. Okay? Alright, let's find our change in our x's. So we know that x2 is a negative 2. We know that x1's a negative 3. And then this thing right here tells me I'm supposed to subtract them. Well, right here, if we have a double negative, we know that it makes it positive. So this really becomes a negative 2 plus 3. So that should be a positive 1. So now the slope between these two ordered pair is a -2 over 1. Now the next thing that we're supposed to do after we find our slope is to identify which one of these ordered pair is an intercept, and then decide if it's the x-intercept or the y-intercept. So let me go ahead and erase this real quick. So from what we did on the front page, we know that if I want to find the y-intercept, I let x be 0. Well, is x 0 here? No, it's not. If I want to find the x-intercept, I let y equal 0. So if I go x and y, well, y is 0 here, so that has to be the x-intercept. So I'm going to write x-intercept right here. And that's fine. So now I've done that part of the problem. Now the next thing I have to do is graph this line. I'm going to graph this line using these two ordered pair. So first I go a -3 on the x-axis and up 2. Here I'm going to go a -2 on the x-axis, and I don't change anything on the y. It stays right there at home on the y-axis. So now we'll go ahead and graph this. Looks like our points are going to be really, really close. So there's a -2, 0, there's a -3, and a +2. So there's my graph. Now let's go ahead and check to see if I've done it right. Remember, we always start counting at the y-intercept, how far it goes up on the y. So I count down 2 and to the right 1. So do I have the right line? Yeah. And how do I know I have the right line? Well, I've taken these 2 points, I've grafted the line, and I've come up with identical slopes. So that means I've done this problem right. So that's how you do these. Some things to remember on the back side is make sure you tell me the x or y intercept from looking at the ordered pair. If I look at this one right here where x is 0 and y is some number, this has to be the y-intercept. Okay, and then remember, when you do your formulas, make sure that you have your negatives there that you need, and just fill in the numbers from your ordered pair and then find your slope. So that's it for this video. It's rather short, right to the point. I haven't done any other problems than what we've done in class, so that gives you plenty that you have to practice on your own, and good luck on your homework, and thanks for tuning in.